Hey everybody, Ben here. Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be continuing on with our speedruns. We are going to be playing whatever. I don't know. We'll have to see when we enter a game. We're playing with the black pieces. Will it be a Semi-Slav or will it be a Dragon Sicilian? It will be neither. Okay, let's do a new 10-minute game. We are playing against G3. So the thing is, we're going to be playing the Semi-Slav, and the reason why is because generally it's good to have kind of the saying, I don't actually know how to kind of say it here. Whenever you're playing a very specific opening against d4, generally you want it to work against other openings like g3, knight f3, c4, etc. And here we're going to be playing the Semi-Slav, but we're going to be kind of making some adjustments. For example, the Semi-Slav, one of the biggest problems is this bishop on c8. So what we're going to do is immediately make it a pretty decent piece. And that's why playing d5 and bishop to f5. This is essentially just a London system now, but a reversed one. And there's some benefits to playing this as a reversed side instead of just as white. When you're playing it in the reverse, because you're playing such a solid structure, it's really hard to take advantage of. And that's something you kind of want, honestly, when you're playing the side that is aiming to equalize, because you know that that is a good result for you. So I like this move bishop d6, saying if they trade, then my pieces are a little bit better. I also don't mind moves like queen b6, but I have to ask myself what could be the problem here. And I think the problem for me in this type of position could be, I'm okay with trading dark square bishops because even though I leave some dark squares a little bit weaker, it's not such a big deal because their dark square bishop is off as well. Queen b6 is really enticing. Let's just play knight to f6. I'll just wait a move. Very, very patient move. I have to be a little bit careful though. Something you can run into playing the London is this e4, e5 business. So if I play bishop d6 and go into this, and then they play e4, I could easily find myself losing a piece. So h6 now is a very good move. The idea of it is now knight h4 will not be winning my light square bishop here. Let's move it all the way back just immediately. And the reason why is it's a flexible move, right? Bishop d6 is still possible, and now I don't have to worry about e4 hitting my bishop and then e5 potentially winning a piece. That's no longer possible here. Of course, if they play e4, I think I'll be going for some different setups. Okay, knight d7, that's a bit different. I like the move knight d7 here, offering some trades. See, trades are pretty good for us because we do have a little bit of space, but you know, again, when we're trying to stay solid, just going for positions exactly like this, it's kind of to our benefit, honestly. This feels very, very, very good. I'm just going to take this. They can take it with the pawn or with the bishop. With the bishop, I'm quite happy. Looks like we're going to end up just doing a bunch of trades here. And I will play the move bishop to e7. So I want to be a little bit careful here. Okay, so bishop d6, what they're intending is to trade, potentially even double up and just say they have the d-file, and that's really the end of the story. But if I play rook d8 here and they take, well, now we're going to potentially enter a position where we are actually just more active. Their king on g1 versus our king on e7, if you compare the activity, we actually have some sort of advantages here. I like the move b6. It doesn't really signal anything. g6 now to prevent f5. And we're just going for some flexibility here. Of course, I would be happy if they took h5 and maybe h4, so they prevent that move. But what if I play something like rook to d5? They end up taking, and then we have the c-file to attack on. Let's play rook d5 here. I imagine they'll end up taking, which they do. And now it's time for rook c8. So we're getting a little bit of activity. It doesn't look like it's anything critical yet. but it does still feel like a pretty decent position. So king c6. I'll play a5 or maybe b5. I'm not really scared of b4. I'm not scared of a4. Okay, and this feels pretty good for us. Now when we play king b6, we do have some targets in the position. It's nothing big yet, but sometimes wins start with a small mistake and then it just grows and grows, right? So just because we don't have a winning advantage right now doesn't mean we can't push it into becoming one. A4, there's two options. There's defending and there's also taking. Of course, that's not going to happen immediately. They need to play something like king d3 or king d2, which I imagine they will play. King d3 natural. Rook c7 is one of those moves I can always play. Just to be a bit quiet here. Same thing with rook c6. I'm actually going to prefer rook c6 here because I want to pretend like I have ideas of king c7 and moving onward. So I'll go a6. Try to keep the position alive. The whole point is b4, we can take this pawn, right? So that's not ideal for them. Now, how do we continue here? The position's really locked up, but I feel like there's just a tiny bit of play left, right? If our opponent rushes things, we can find some sort of advantage. Okay, there we go. This is very good for us. Now we have an open file, and their rook is just kind of poorly placed here. Should I take it and then push? I like that option. Taking it and then pushing. And the idea of taking and then pushing is that, well, first off, I don't think this works. If I go rook takes, pawn takes, and then king c6, they do have c5, but then I have f6 and e5, and my pawns are actually further apart. Does this work? Let me calculate this, because if you can't calculate it, it could end up badly. Rook takes d6, pawn takes d6, king c6, c5, f6, king to c2, e5, takes, king b3, e4, takes, e3, king c3. They're just in time, so that's not a good thing, actually. Instead, what if I go king c5 and then start pushing? This also could run into some trouble. Instead, what if I go king c7? They take, I take, king c2, and it looks like it could be a draw. So pretty much the goal is whoever touches one of these squares, you want to touch it after them. So king c7 takes, king c2. If I go here, king b3 would win the game. So king b6. If they go king b3, then it's not working out. I really want to take, but it's just not working, is it? Takes f6. Immediately. The idea is if they want to go d7, then king c7 wins. c5, king c6, there's king c4. Yeah, so I think king c7 is the only way to hold this position together. That's not such a bad thing. So if they move away, I might have rook to b6 and then I can start pushing this pawn. That is an option. c5, of course, I just take this pawn, so that would not work. Let's go rook b6 here. c5, I can just meet with rook to b5. Do I move up? Rook d6, king c5, and the idea is they're forced into a trade there. And if they trade, they lose. Because takes... well, no, they don't lose, but if they go king b3, they lose to king c5. I like this move a lot. But they might be fine after rook d6. Interesting. Okay, so I get to move up. They can't go rook d6 because whenever you get the passed pawn that's kind of closer to the action, that's a big deal, right? Oh boy. I did not consider that move. This could be a problem. Oh boy, that's really bad. Rook c7 check, king b6, then they can take. And if I ever go back... Okay, this is good. This is very good now. We take this pawn. We absolutely take this pawn. We move up. And then we can give a check. Okay, we got so lucky there, and I'll go over everything and show why I got lucky. Because that was extremely lucky. Let's go rook h2 and try to take this pawn on h4. The thing is, I think we're just faster here. Despite them having those pawns there. So let's give a check. Move up and start pushing. Check. Check. And then I go here. And I have this check here. And then I start pushing my h-pawn, correct? I hope I'm correct. So they can't push and then promote right away. They have to play something like e7. So now when they promote, I can give a check. Oh, that was so lucky. Wow. And now they're kind of in a really bad spot. Because if they go to this file, then I get to promote. And if they go to this file, I get to give a check, take their queen, and then promote again. Wow, okay. And it's all about whether or not I can win this from this situation here. So let's get my queen into the action. Okay. Let's give a check here. And it's all about, can I like win this rook somehow? Let's go queen f7. And then see if I can just kind of, you know, trick my way into this. Okay, now that it's on the back rank, it's good, because if I ever get a check that's like a good check, then I can maybe pick up this rook at the same time. Let's go queen c7 now. And they have to move the rook, and then I can play king to b1 and then push. Because they're like one move too short, right? So if they move the rook away, like that, I move my king up. The problem is they can't promote because their king is actually still being pinned, right? Now let's give a check. So this is kind of like a mix of themes. You'll normally see like the king and pawn endings, but nothing like this. So this is very, very lucky. Let's give a check like this. And then like this. Oh, no, like this. I just need to get their king far away and kind of goat them into thinking that that's actually a good thing. Because the thing is, eventually I can give a check where they have to defend the pawn by king e8, right? I think I should be able to do that. Check, and then if they go king f8, then I can give that check. Right, there we go. And now I can move up. King to c8, and they can't stop me from promoting here, can they? Because rook c8 is actually covered. Wow, this is so lucky. So lucky. I almost lost that game. Rook f7, and if they were more accurate there, this would have been over. That was some good stuff. Phew. Let's see what they play. Okay. So they do that, but now we can just promote, and this is a classically winning ending, which I was talking about before. So E pawns and G pawns specifically are winning. Bishop pawns are not, and there's a very specific reason that has to do with stalemate, which I will actually show after this game. So this is the idea here, and actually I can discuss it here. So if this was a C pawn and we gave the check here, they could actually go to the corner because, you know, we'd be giving the check on b3 instead of c3. They could go to the corner because if we took the pawn, it would be stalemate. But here they don't have that stalemate trick, and that's actually why it's winning, funnily enough. So we give the check, force them to go in front of the pawn. Eventually, here, check, and they go in front of the pawn. We move our king up. It's just continuing to repeat the situation. Now they give up the front of the pawn, so we can just go in front here, no problem. King f6, and yeah, we can just take the pawn, which is great. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about, a lot of mistakes that happen there on my end, but very, very interesting game. Okay, so let's get into it. Yeah, all right. So yeah, I still stand by this of just playing like just a reverse London. If you're a Semi-Slav player, I would say the best things you can do are just play. Oh, what was that? Play a reverse London if they don't challenge you, and then if they do challenge that sort of setup, then just play your normal Semi-Slav. And what I mean by that is, for example, if they play c4, you can actually play c6. And for example, if they play d4, now you're back in the Semi-Slav. Whereas if you play some other move here, like knight f6, just trying to be symmetrical, or not symmetrical, but just trying to make a normal move, or c5 or e5, you have to learn like a whole new branch of theory. But if you play just c6, there's still some stuff you'll need to know. For example, this variation of actually the Caro-Kann, which isn't particularly too scary, but anyways, that's what I really like about the Semi-Slav in particular, is you can get away with this reverse London setup against most other things. So that's kind of like a lesson of what to do when your opponent kind of surprises you in the opening. You should still have some sort of plan of like, okay, the Semi-Slav is like this, it's this type of setup, but it has this problem. So because they're not challenging me, can I solve that problem ahead of time? And that's exactly what we can do with bishop to f5. And we have a pretty decent position here, as you can see. So bishop h7, knight d7. Doesn't feel like we're being challenged. If I was in like a classical game, honestly, I think I'd prefer black at this point. Taking on e4 felt okay. I didn't see anything too wrong with it. Supposedly d takes e4 is a little bit stronger, and I think the reason why is because it's trying to limit these two pieces, which does make a lot of sense. I'm curious about this variation here. If I just go bishop to e7, it says h4. There's actually some advantage. Now it's going away. Rook to d3. This makes a lot more sense to me because you're trying to double up on the file. g5 looks decent. It's a move you'd have to consider in these games just to push away their bishop. Doesn't feel that bad, honestly, for black, even in these variations. So knight takes e4, bishop takes. After the queen trade, I feel pretty happy. I think their best setup here is just going like rook d3. And the idea here is if I'm a bit silly in castle, now they can just hit me with rook d7, which is a huge problem. They probably have a winning advantage at that point. And then if I don't do that, and I play something like rook d8, maybe they just play like rook d1 or something. And they just try to claim that they're doing pretty well here. And also, one thing to note here is if you castle, there's actually still this move rook d7, which is very annoying. Though you're not really threatening to take these things, having this rook on d7 is just very, very uncomfortable. Because you can't take on d7 and then go rook d8, which is one of black's big ideas here. So for example, like if you go king g2, now just like takes, and I think rook d8 and black's fine. Even though again, you don't really want to castle when you're entering these like end games. You know, you gotta look a little bit further. I was expecting bishop c7. Taking on e7 definitely helps me, and as you can see, the difference in the kings, I feel like the black king is just better placed. So b6 was fine, g6 was fine, nothing too crazy here. I thought rook d5 was a good try to just try to change the position up. Funnily enough, maybe e takes is better here, and the computer's kind of enjoying it. And the reason why this could be a better move is because now you have a way to enter white's position on the light squares, right? There's not really anything covering those squares at all. So this is a way you can try to exploit that. But c takes and rook c8 I thought was fine as well. It feels like black has just slightly more activity. This pawn isn't really a target, whereas this one could be. Although c3, of course, is going to defend everything. Yeah, so I brought my king over, as one does. And then we're going to get to this ending here where I should have been a lot more careful. So this is fine. I should have just gone for the draw with taking. This is just going to end up a draw here with opposition. Nothing to really accomplish because neither king can really push forward and make progress. b4, this is still okay. Rook d6. So I was correct in my calculations that this was wrong. At first it looks good, right? Because you see this, king to c6, c5, f6. And I think I was calculating king c2 here, and this is still winning, but king c4 is just a lot more clear. But even king c2, e5, the problem is you're still just too slow. You're in the box here. And after e3, king to c3. And the thing is, we can never take this pawn because this pawn just pushes, right? So black is just completely trapped. If this pawn was just one square further away, or white was just one tempo down, we would be winning, but just because that might have been the case doesn't mean, you know, we're the better player. It just means that, you know, we're not tempo up or down or anything. Like, it's just not working. So you have to look for something else. So king c7 keeps things alive. I thought this was a good try. Rook b6, king c2, and probably b3 check should be played. Just throw that move in. King c6 I thought was fine with the idea of rook d6, king c5. And now if rook d7, we can take on c4. They can take on f7, sure, but you know, we have our activity as well with our passed b pawn. But let's actually just get to the important part here, which is I just completely missed rook d7 here. This is completely different with the king on b3, because after this, well, we're just losing on the spot. So rook a6 is what I tried. Rook c7 check is a very important move to throw in. And why is that? It's because it just avoids any activity, right? Rook c7, the king has to go back, and after they take, we don't have this kind of multi-threat of rook a3 and king c4. Whereas when they take on f7 immediately, this is kind of the problem with rushing your analysis. Rook f7 is actually just, it says better for black. It looks pretty decent when you see rook a3 check and rook takes g3, or even king takes c4 here. I thought rook takes g3 was pretty decent because this pawn should fall. If they go rook c7, we have this move, king to d4. We can either start going this way or eventually pick up this pawn, depending on what white does. But all right, they ended up taking on e6 here, rook g2. And again, like as you see, just one difference. If they just threw in a check first and then took the pawn, the difference in activity is massive. It's just completely different result. It goes from winning for white to potentially winning for black here. Supposedly king b3 wasn't best. Rook g4 was. Good looking move. I just liked putting the king on the back rank. It just looks visually good. And I'm not sure if... Oh, okay. So this is a problem. And now I'm losing. So I have to play rook f4 here. What's the idea? f6. King c3. And why king c3? Obviously it does threaten mate, but what if they just go rook g3 check? King d4, you're just in time. You're attacking this pawn and this pawn now. So they can't push without this pawn dropping. Okay, so that's very hard to see when you have 3 or 4 minutes on the clock. But okay, other than that, you know, like, yeah, completely losing, but rook endings are really difficult, notoriously so. And I was really happy to see king g6. Like, I thought e7 was actually the winning move here. And the reason why is because if we take, they can promote. And they're attacking a rook. This pawn is just too far from promoting. But they were so worried about that they played king g6. And again, also e7, like, there's no check. They can always just go king g6 and defend. So they're just too fast there. They don't have to worry about moving their king. And that prophylaxis actually just lost them the game here. Rook g1, rook f1. And yeah, surprisingly, it is actually winning. And it has to do with what I mentioned before of kind of like playing a king, king and pawn versus queen, but with rook, king, and pawn on for us as well. And because of this, we just have to run them out of tempos, and then we can push our pawn. As exactly happened. Ooh, okay, interesting. So I should not have played king b1. King c3 was better. Maybe I'm supposed to ignore this pawn. I'm not sure, but let's actually go on to a lesson here, because I think that's kind of more important now than all of this. So this is a draw, and the reason why is it's very particular. It's very specific with C and A pawns because there's stalemate tricks. So with C pawns, we'll just look at this for today, because I think this is the harder to know of the two, is that we're going to try this checking technique right now and see how it works. So king b8, queen b6 check, and now king c8 would, if you use this technique, black could win. This is still technically a draw, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. It's still a draw. But instead, you can actually play this move king a8, and there's nothing that black can do, unfortunately, because you are threatening to promote. If the black king was much, much closer, as in they could play something like, I'm not sure, like queen to c6 and then king b6 somehow, this would be winning. But when the king's like super far away, like it is in this case and like it was in the game, it's just going to be a draw because you can't take the pawn without stalemate, and instead, if anything else happens, like giving a check, then it's just a repetition. So watch out for these. Know your endings. This is a very important one. You can actually find this in 100 Endgames You Must Know, a really good book, as well as many, many other books, because it's just a very, very, very important position for your chess. So that's going to cover it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you tomorrow. All right. Bye-bye.